Welcome everyone to another tier list. The last one I did was Crash Bandicoot. I figured it was about time I did a Sonic one, ranking the mainline Sonic titles. Now this is my own personal list that I created, my own tier list, because I feel like everyone's got a different opinion on what they consider to be a mainline title. And I will say right now, this goes up to Sonic Superstars, which is the last game we had. This does not include collections, like Mega Collection. This does not include spin-offs or handhelds. And that includes Spinball, because it's a Spinball type game. It's a pinball type Sonic game. Like, not exactly pinball, but it's still kind of, it's a completely sort of different experience. And I have included 3D Blast, but I feel like I might leave that one out as well, because again, it's sort of a different experience. But this is the list I've got here. I think I've pretty much played everything here. It's when we get to like the handhelds and such that I actually haven't played, but that'll be for another video. Let's start off with the first one. I'll give my few opinions on how I feel about these games as we go through. And yeah, be sure to come up with your own tier maker list. I've put a link in the description. You can use this one if you like. And feel free to @ me at Twitter. My @ should be at GamebustersJ, all one word. So yeah, you can follow along. Put your own opinions on, you know, do your own tier list. And be sure to @ me at Twitter. Sorry, X. I refuse to call it that. Anyway, let's start off with the iconic, the very first game, that is Sonic the Hedgehog 1. Now, nostalgia wants me to put it as A, but I just want to say that B doesn't mean bad. It's not bad at all. I actually think it's one of the weaker games, because like Sonic 2 improves on it so much. But the basis on it is really solid. Like I say, my nostalgia wants to put it in A. Critically, I want to put it in B. So I'm going to be critical. I'm going to put it in B. I still really like the game, despite, you know, like Sonic 2 really cementing, in my opinion, what a 2D Sonic game should be. In my opinion, you know, like you're literally playing a game where your speed is restricted outside of speed shoes or rolling, and sometimes if you go too fast, the camera kills you. So yeah, they had to change that. But Sonic 1 is iconic. I mean, everybody hates Green Hill Zone at this point, but I mean, it's iconic, right? Starlight Zone, I love Starlight Zone. The music is solid. The basis of the game is solid. It's just a solid overall game. Like, it's not bad, but it obviously could be a lot better. It's a first game, right? There's many games. There are many first games where it's just like, you know, here's like we're setting out the groundwork. You know, sometimes first games are really good. There are a lot of games that, you know, it's like, oh, this game is decent or okay, and then like the sequel just makes everything better. Not always the case, but I do think it's the case when it comes to Sonic right here. So, you know, as much as I like the game because of sort of like nostalgia and whatnot, I'm gonna put it in B. I would say a solid start. It's clear that it could be improved on, and I just enjoy the other games a lot more personally than Sonic 1. Even though I've been back to Sonic 1. So yeah, now if we were talking about Sonic hacks, I mean, Sonic hacks, it would be on S tier for sure, but that's going to be where I'm putting Sonic 1. So let's move on. Sonic 2. Now this is the first game I ever played, period. Like the first Sonic the Hedgehog game I ever played, the first video game I ever played. And I sucked at this game. I managed to get past like Emerald Hill Zone, and then I got stuck on Chemical Plant. But I did eventually, like slowly but surely, young Jay did eventually get past Chemical Plant, and then I got stuck on Aquatic Ruin, and then I got stuck on Hilltop, or Casino Night I should say, then I got stuck on... For the longest time, I got to like Sky Chase Zone, and I got to Wing Fortress. I couldn't get past the Wing Fortress boss fight, and then when I got to Death Egg Zone, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! We're in space," and then I just get humbled by Silver Sonic. And if I somehow manage to beat Silver Sonic, I get humbled by the Death Egg robot. I could not beat that game for the longest time. I would not be surprised if I used a cheat. But I did eventually beat it. I was still a kid when I did beat it, but it definitely took a while. Oh my god, Sonic 2. The OST, fantastic. It introduces everybody's favorite buddy and 2-player co-op guy, Tails. Tails miles per hour, although you can't like make him fly in this game, sadly. But Sonic 2 introduced the Spin Dash, which, my god, when you have the Spin Dash, it is so hard going back to Sonic 1, because it's just like, man. You know, it's like, imagine Sonic 1 having it. You know, and shout outs to Sonic Origins, because Sonic Origins basically gave Sonic 1 Spin Dash. So, like, just being able to rev up and gain some speed is really helpful, especially with like getting up slopes and whatnot. You couldn't really do that in Sonic 1. You kind of just had to like try and use your best to use the momentum to get up to hills, and sometimes it's just not really plausible. Sonic's not restricted in speed. You know, he can run so fast in Chemical Plant Zone that he literally outruns the camera. That's always it's a good thrill. Sonic 2 is so good at really emphasizing Sonic's speed, which is what I feel like Sonic 1 ironically lacks, considering he's supposed to be fast. Like, the speed cap is gone, right? You are speeding past that speed barrier, man. Like, this is what we call, like, you know, great momentum based gameplay here. You know, the physics are top notch. The levels, there's so many levels in this game. This game's really long. There's so many great levels. You know, I actually quite like Emerald Hill Zone. Actually, Chemical Plant Zone, oh, iconic. Love that zone. Aquatic Rune's a nice one as well. Casino, I mean, I've spent so much time in Casino Night Zone. You know, Hilltop Zone, it's basically just kind of Emerald Hill Zone, but that's alright. Mystic Cave, my favorite zone. I just love the aesthetic. Absolutely love the aesthetic, actually. So that's great. You know, and then we've got like the somewhat weaker levels like Oil Ocean Zone and Metropolis Zone. Sky Chase Zone, I actually quite like that. And then eventually, you know, Wing Fortress. And then, I mean, the Death Egg Zone introduced Silver Sonic and the Death Egg Robot. I mean, dude, this game is so good. It's really good. Probably not my favorite special stages, but I mean, hey, you get Super Sonic. It also introduced Super Sonic. So, I mean, like I say, this game just does a lot of things right. Like, it just improves on Sonic 1. It's like, hey, Sonic 1 was actually a lot slower. We're gonna make him faster. We're gonna improve on the level design. The flow is so good. There's so many paths. There's secrets. There's still things that I didn't know for the longest time. Like, I'm an adult and I see someone go into a route that I didn't even know existed. And I'm like, the hell? What do you mean it's always been there? Incredible level design. Like, immaculate. It's so good. It's really, really good. But I actually think it's quite a tough game. I really do. But I would still personally put it on S tier. Yeah, somewhat because it's my first game, but I really do think it leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds, it improves on Sonic 2. Can you tell that I'm not doing this off a script? I'm actually doing this a lot more raw. Unless I edited it out so smoothly that you couldn't tell. I might even edit this out, who knows. And now it comes to my actual favourite. It's Sonic 3, and if I want to be really picky, Sonic 3 in front of Sonic 2, but I think they're both S tier. Now, I've actually got it separate, so it's like Sonic and Knuckles is separate. I do think the Sonic 3 portion overall is strong, very strong. I think a bit more stronger than Sonic and Knuckles. I'm a bit more forgiving with Sonic and Knuckles, personally. I know a lot of people are like, I don't like Sandopolis, and the other levels are kind of just weaker and stuff, and it's like, I don't hate Sandopolis. I understand it being a bit weaker, but I mean, a lot of people complain about Marble Garden. I like Marble Garden. Oh, this game, it introduces Knuckles. Tails can actually fly. You can actually fly and swim, which is awesome. We get introduced to, well, I think it's my personal favorite special stages, the blue spheres. Also, you know, little bonuses in the lamppost that you can get. The music is phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal. We get like little in-game cutscenes. We get act transitions, like you go from Act 1 to Act 2. Like little things like that, it's just like, whoa. It's like, okay, let's take Sonic 2 and let's just like add some things and then, yeah. And like, I just feel like the levels are really strong. Angel Island is probably my favorite 2D like first level in a Sonic game. Love that zone. The music is great. The forest aesthetic is great. Followed up with probably the best water stage ever, which is Hydro City. Oh, and that soundtrack. Like an actual water level where you can technically just avoid most of the water, go up the top path, and gain so much speed. But even if there is water, if you're running fast enough, you can literally run on top of the water, man. A water level that actually emphasizes on speed is just, oh. Believe it or not, it's not my favorite stage, but it's a really good one. Ice Cap Zone. Ice Cap Zone is my favorite. I love snow levels, and it's one of my favorite snow levels. I love that you start off in a snowboard if you're playing as Sonic, and you snowboard down and stuff. Love the music, and no, I'm not talking about the prototype or the music in Origins. I'm talking about the one we actually got. Super fun stage. I almost forgot, we get the Insta Shield, which is just busted. You can just destroy bosses with the Insta Shield. You've got the other shield power-ups, the Bubble Shield, Fire Shield, Electric Shield. Like, so many like great additions. Take Sonic 2 and let's just add a bunch of stuff, right? Let's add a bunch of stuff, give us some new great stages to play. You know, give us a new character in Knuckles, which will eventually be playable. And you can obviously lock them together with Sonic and Knuckles, and you can get Sonic 3 and Knuckles and play as Knuckles from the beginning from there. But that's really cool. And then you got Launch Base Zone. The boss fights are really good as well, actually. The boss fights are really good. Big Arm at the end of Launch Base Zone. I mean, Big Arm can literally knock the Super Sonic out of Sonic. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, Big Arm is a crazy fight. It's like, it's not super duper difficult, but it's really fun. It's a really fun, you know, boss fight, and I can't emphasize how good the music is between the two games. Sonic 3, for me, did so much right. The level design is spot on. A fantastic combination of speed and exploration. Sonic 3 is just Sonic 2 but better, in my opinion, and Sonic 2 is already up there as like one of the best, if not the best. But for me, especially the Sonic 3 portion, is just, yeah, it's top, it's peak. Like, for me, nothing beats Sonic 3. So I guess, well, let's move on to Sonic 3 Part 2, which is basically Sonic and Knuckles. I'm sort of in between S and A. As a standalone title, I want to put it as an A. If I put it with Sonic 3, I actually put it as an S. So I think I'm going to put it as an A. It's still really good. It's still really good. I think together, I actually quite like it. It makes the game really long, but I actually kind of like it as a together package. And plus, if you combine them, you can actually get the Super Emeralds, which introduces Hyper Sonic, Hyper Knuckles. This is the only way to get Super Tails with the flickies. Oh, and we actually get more Blue Sphere stages. Knuckles is a really cool character. He can glide, he can climb, he can break certain walls. He's got his own like little scenario. You know, Flying Battery Zone is a fantastic stage. Love that. Lava Reef Zone is my favorite stage of Sonic and Knuckles. Love that. Sky Sanctuary Zone's pretty cool as well. Mecha Sonic, Death Egg Zone, Doomsday Zone, getting to fly around as Super Sonic. Super good. Super good. I think, you know, some of the things are a bit on the weaker side, but it is essentially just Sonic 3 Part 2, like, because it was supposed to be one game, but it didn't work out that way, so we ended up getting 2. And I mean, props for Sonic and Knuckles, because you could literally put Sonic 2 on top of Sonic and Knuckles, and then you could just play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. Like, that blew my mind. I was like, whoa. And if you go one step further, you could put certain games, like you could put like Sonic 1 and connect it to Sonic and Knuckles, and you'd think it'd be, well, Knuckles and Sonic 1, but Actually, no, you don't get that at all. Instead, you can actually unlock the secret blue spheres, which basically you can just play a bunch of randomly generated blue sphere stages, like unlimited. Like if you love blue spheres, it's like, here you go. It's such a secret as well. It's really cool. Yeah, you know what? We'll do the 2D stuff. Sure, we'll do the 2D stuff. Sonic Mania. S tier. I think. Yeah, I think I'll put it there. I think Sonic 3 is top. I think Sonic 2, partly because of nostalgia, I think it beats Sonic Mania for me. Sonic Mania is still, I would consider to be S tier. I was thinking A tier, and the only reason, literally the only reason, is because I wish the stages were all original. Clearly the concept was like Sonic going through history, which was kind of already done with Generations, but it is what it is. But yeah, I literally think, like, if Mania had original levels, like completely original, I would have a really hard time picking between Sonic 3 and Sonic Mania. But literally because of that. For me personally, because we're kind of just redoing the levels, and don't get me wrong, like, Green Hill Zone is a completely different experience in Sonic Mania. Chemical Plant Zone is a different experience. Flying Battery Zone is a different experience. But it is still those stages, even if they are flipping the stages on its head and be like, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. But when they do have original stages, like Studiopolis, fantastic, absolutely love Studiopolis. Press Garden, especially Act 2, love that stage. So, you know, Mirage Saloon, they are fantastic stages. It really feels like a love letter to Sonic fans. Sonic Mania is just like, hey, let's just take all 3 games, like Sonic 1, 2, and 3, and let's just put it in one game, full of love and attention, and even references to other Sega games. It is super good. It is like a nostalgia trip for those who grew up with Sonic. It is a passion project, and I almost wonder if Sonic Mania ever actually happened and it was a fever dream, because we're probably never going to get a Mania 2, and that's really sad, because, I don't know, Sega is funny like that. It's a real shame. They gave us some great boss fights, some great references, and it's just it's just like, hey, let's take these 3 games, slap it in all in one experience. Like, you get to experience basically all 3 games, including Sonic CD. So yeah. And speaking of Sonic CD, before I forget, if I can find you, there you are, I'm gonna put it as A. Sonic & Knuckles is definitely better than Sonic CD, so I'm gonna put it there. But I will defend CD. I would argue that it's probably a B. But now you know what, I'm putting it in B. I need to be more critical here. I'm putting it in B. I don't know if I could say CD's better than Sonic 1. I don't know. It's a toss-up, really. I think Sonic 1 wins for me because it's like the first title, and I have more memories. But if I'm being critical here, I mean, CD is still, I think, a really good game. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. I just think it's a bit different because it's a bit more explorative, and the level design isn't as strong as the other games. It could be, but it also introduced Metal Sonic, and Metal Sonic is cool as heck. Maybe the best soundtrack, at least in the 2D games. The soundtrack is so good. It almost carries that entire game. Like, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. But I actually really like the time travel mechanic. I actually quite enjoy it, and I like the UFO special stages as well. Maybe not my favorite, but I do like them. So yeah, and we get like Sonic Boom, we get like intro and outro animation. Honestly, I think Sonic CD is kind of overhated, you know, in my opinion, and somewhat underrated. I like Sonic CD, but I absolutely can understand that it's just not quite as good as the other titles. It isn't. It is definitely weaker, in my opinion, but it's definitely, in my opinion, not bad. It's not bad, but it's solid, but there are definitely things in that holds it back. If it had the level design, if it was a little less about explorative and have like the better level design of say Sonic 1, 2 and 3, I feel like it would be an A or an S. But still, really good game. I don't want B to really emphasize that I think that the game is like bad, because it's not. It's not B for bad. It's kind of like average slash, you know, it's decent, right? It's decent. It's yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna stop mumbling. I'm going to include the Sonic 4 games, and, you know, I mean, do I think Sonic 4 is so bad that I'm going to put it in a D? I think I'll put it C. Sonic 4 clearly tried to do what Mania did, but Mania just did it way better. And Sonic 4 just flopped. Like, it was obviously at the time trying to be like a modernized 2D Sonic. It took parts of these games that we didn't really like, or at least most people didn't like. It basically tried to do what Mania did, and this was before Mania, but Mania just did it way better. You know, like Mania feels like the true Sonic 4. Actual Sonic 4 is just like, what went wrong? Like, Sega used to be so good at this. What went wrong? Like, the physics aren't good. You know, you can't even get proper momentum and speed. The level design is bad. Dickish enemy placements. The graphics is so-so. I mean, it really depends on if you like the look or not, the aesthetics or not. Maybe not the best looking games, but the soundtrack is kind of weak, which is really unfortunate, because Sonic games usually have very strong soundtracks. It's, oh man, it's just like one of those things where you want it to be good and it's just not. It's not. But I also don't think it's not the worst game. I don't exactly go back to it, put it that way. However, what I do think is an improvement is Episode 2. I still think Episode 2's got problems, but I still think it's an improvement. But I'm going to put it in B. I'll say it's a solid improvement, but it's not enough to make it like an A or an S. Definitely not. And I would still argue that I'd go back to CD and Sonic 1 definitely before Sonic 4 Episode 2. But I do think it's an improvement. Once again, the soundtrack's a bit of a hit and miss, but I do think it improves on things. I think the physics is a bit better in that game. You know, the combo attacks with Tails being in at this time are decent. You know, I mean, I guess they tried with the Sonic CD appeal, would put Metal Sonic in there. Was okay. Again, like, the game was just overall okay. I just felt like I was having a somewhat better time than Sonic 4 Episode 1, but it ain't on par with the other games. It just isn't. So that's why I'm putting it in B. It was okay. That's the best way I could put it. Now, Sonic Superstars, A tier. Now, if you would have asked me right after I beat the game, I might have put it as a B. If you know, you know. But I will just say this, because Sonic Superstars has been out for a little while. This, if you haven't seen my video of the game, the weakest parts of the boss fights, in my opinion, especially the final bosses, they aren't good. They are pretty bad, in my opinion. They really drag the game down. But I actually think overall it's a solid experience, you know? Like, to say it again, this feels like maybe this is what Sonic 4 should have been from Sega anyway. Yeah, like, the physics feel way more like the classics. It's almost like you're playing Sonic from Generations, sort of similar but not quite the same. But it's got that very like modernized 2D look. You've got several playable characters, Amy, which is cool, Tails and Knuckles, of course. You've got the new cool character, Trip. Yeah, she's pretty great with her abilities and stuff. Everyone's pretty much got super forms. You know, Trip can turn into an actual dragon, so that's cool. The levels are actually, I think they're visually very appealing. The OST is hit and miss again, unfortunately. There are some tracks that are pretty good, and then there are some tracks that are like what happened. Yeah, like I feel like some tracks, it's not so much like the actual song itself on like the rhythm and bass, and it feels more like the wrong instruments were used or something. I don't know, but the soundtrack's very hit and miss. But I actually quite enjoy most of the levels. A little bit of some challenging parts here and there, but the boss fights, they're not good. They're really not good. There are some weird decisions in this game as well. Like, some stages only have like one act for some reason. It's weird. I don't really know what they were going for with that. I think the special stages are okay. Again, I personally feel like people hate on the special stages a bit too much. I feel like I hear people say they're either too easy or they're just dickish and boring. I feel like I'm a bit in the middle ground of those special stages. I think they are a refreshing change of pace. I like them. I don't think they're the best, but I like them. I think this is again, a pretty decent 2D Sonic game. I would probably say a 7 out of 10. Not quite as good as Sonic and Knuckles in my opinion, but I wouldn't put it in a B. I wouldn't put it like an average. I would even say, yeah, above Sonic 1. I know, blasphemy. but I would. I personally would, because it still does stuff that, like, say, Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 do. So to me, it's like I'm having much more enjoyment. I've got the drop dash, I've got the spin dash. Everybody else has got their abilities. Amy's got like her own abilities and stuff. I do overall enjoy it, but it does definitely have some problems here and there. Some dickish enemy placements, but it's still pretty solid in my opinion. So yeah, Sonic Superstars. If you haven't watched my review of the game, or my good parts of the game, you should. Maybe I'll put it in the description. Maybe I'll put it in the cards at the top. I don't know. We'll see. I think this game is overhated, and Sonic fans do not know what they want. Yeah, I said it. We don't know what we want. None of us do. And we're never going to be happy, goddammit. Okay, so let's move on to the 3D Sonic games. Sonic Adventure. I probably am going to put it here. This one's a bit tricky because it's like, in my head, I'm trying to push the 3D games as separate to 2D games, because 2D and 3D. For me, I'd probably put Sonic Adventure on par with like Sonic 3 in terms of like best 3D game, in my personal opinion. It's not perfect. No game is perfect, but the Sonic portions are really strong for me, and I like the Tails and the Knuckles portions. The Amy ones are okay. Big is big. And I actually don't mind Gamma. I actually kind of like Gamma. It's different. They all have their own sort of story scenarios and such. You know, the music is phenomenal. Open Your Heart, Crash 40, the Supersonic boss fight that we get is pretty cool as well. The game is just really fun. It introduces the homing attack, which becomes a staple, the light speed dash, which is pretty cool as well. And there's a lot of great things, and I actually do feel like it was actually a pretty damn good transition. So what I'm trying to say is that, no, Sonic did not have a rough transition into 3D. But no, like I really enjoy the Sonic portion. I do think like the Biggs portion kind of drags it down, and the Amy is kind of whatever. The Gamma is okay, but I can also see some people being like, well, it's different gameplay. It's not Sonic, right? I'm not playing as Sonic. I'm not running fast. I'm not playing as Tails. I'm not playing as Knuckles. So I can see that, right? But for me personally, overall, I really enjoyed the game, and I actually quite like the story with Chaos and whatnot, and the echidnas. It's one of the better stories, I think, in the Sonic games. So, and it's a bit rough around the edges, but yeah, for me, it's still a game that I love to go back to. Really good, really strong 3D game. And technically its first 3D game, and it was a really good one in my opinion. Now, here comes Sonic Adventure 2. I feel like, depending on when you ask the fans, it's either an A to an S, or a B to a C, maybe even D. Like I said, Sonic fans, you don't know what you want. I would still argue it's an S, maybe an A. Again, it depends for me, but I'd probably put it as an S. I don't think it's above Adventure for me personally, but I do think Adventure 2 is really good. I think they introduced arguably one of the best characters, which being literal Black Sonic. You just can't say that. Shadow the Hedgehog, which, I mean, he literally is. He's literally just Sonic again, but he's edgier. I mean, look, the character is super popular that they had to bring him back. So he might even be more popular than Sonic himself at this point, believe it or not. So yeah, I mean, and I mean, Rouge, right? Everybody likes Rouge, right? I really enjoy the music. Very sort of like rock heavy, but I really enjoy the music. The Sonic stages and the Shadow stages are really solid. They're really good. Really enjoy them. The gameplay is very fast paced, very action paced. There's some great set pieces in that game. I think where people maybe doesn't like it so much, I guess it depends on the person. Tails being in a mech, a lot of people don't really like, especially after Sonic Adventure. I can understand that. But I actually kind of like the idea of Tails sort of being the mirror to Eggman, which you play as Eggman in this game for the first time. It's different, you know, you run around and you shoot some things. It's a bit clunky. I feel like if it was, maybe it was less clunky, people would enjoy the mechs more. I think it's okay. I think it's decent. Not my favourite part, but I don't hate it. I think it's alright. I actually really enjoyed the Knuckles part in Sonic Adventure, so I enjoy it here as well. The only downside for me is maybe some of the stages aren't as strong. Rouge's Mad Space come to mind. And they changed the radar in Adventure 2, made it worse, sadly. If it had the Adventure radar, that would definitely make them a bit better. But I really enjoyed the soundtrack overall. I mean, live and learn. Live and learn. Sonic versus Shadow in space. Super Sonic and Super Shadow fighting in space. They're just flying around and shit. Like, oh, like this game. I mean, I feel like it's the definition of epic, especially back in the day. Like, geez, this game did some things, man. I mean, and the story is wild. I still think arguably the best story. Like, oh, dude. Dude. Like, this is like the definition of a hype Sonic game, in my opinion. It's really good. It's got its problems, but it's really good. I would still argue S tier, A tier, but, you know, if you ask me after I've fought the Bio-Lizard both times, I might put it down to an A, because I don't really like those boss fights. I think those boss fights are clunky, and sometimes it feels like I'm not even making a mistake. The game is just screwing me over, and it's a real shame, because the Super Sonic fight, you know, it's very epic, like I say, but I'm not the biggest fan of that fight. But I would still arguably say that it is a very strong S tier for me personally, so there you go. Anyway, let's move on to Sonic Heroes. Once again, I'm going to put it as a B, but I'm actually going to... I don't really want to compare it to Sonic 4, but I'm actually... it's above Sonic 4, in my opinion. I like Sonic Heroes, but I can acknowledge it's got a lot of problems. The slippery controls, which actually kind of causes a lot of problems. The graphics, I can take it or leave it. Some people prefer the GameCube version compared to, like, say, the PS2 version. It's like textures are really different and such. The fact that you have to go through 4 scenarios, which don't really change that much, just to get to the final, yeah, not great. Not great. I get that they wanted to go for, like, the team mechanic and be like, hey, you know, play these different teams, but I think the problem is that they're required to fully beat the game, and nothing really changes much. Maybe if the other teams, I don't know, had some more unique levels to really differentiate between them. I actually kind of like Omega, the introduction to Omega in this game. I kind of like Omega. So that's a plus. Team Chaotix came back. I think that's neat. Team Chaotix actually came back from the Knuckles Chaotix crew, so that's cool. Not the biggest fan of the special stages. I like the music, but getting them is a pain in the ass, in my opinion. So not my favorite. The boss fights are kind of as well, to be honest. So I feel like it's Sonic Heroes is a very middle of the road game, but I feel like it could have been so much better. Like, I feel like I'm seeing the potential there, but this is what we got. For what it is, I kind of like it. I kind of enjoyed the team mechanic. It could have been done better, you know? But yeah, it's not beating a lot of the Sonic titles for me. So I decided to include Shadow, and I'll tell you why. Mostly because I feel like Shadow's character kind of leads into Sonic 06. I don't necessarily think that you should play Shadow per se before Sonic 06, but Heroes unfortunately doesn't really conclude Shadow's return because he loses his memory and stuff, and they literally dedicate an entire game to that, and then he kind of like eventually gets his like conclusion. He's like, yeah, I'm finally moving on. That's kind of the only reason. You can take it or leave it, but yeah, I'm debating between B and C. Again, I like Shadow, but it's got a lot of problems. But I like Shadow, but it's got a lot of problems. Yeah, I mean, look, it's edgy to hedgy with guns and motorcycles. I mean, definitely an era of its time. My god. I mean, if you liked Heroes controls, then maybe you'll like Shadow because it's got that slippery control again. Some people say that Shadow's actually worse. Maybe it's very similar. It's very similar. The vehicles suck. The gunplay is fine. It works. It's functional. The story is just as wild as hell, and I don't care for the aliens and the black arms. I'm sorry. I just what? Like, Shadow the Hedgehog this story didn't really need to happen, but it is what it is, and like Heroes, I enjoy it for what it is, but there are definitely a lot I don't like about this game. I have a soft spot. I feel like Shadow the Hedgehog is kind of like my guilty pleasure. Like, I know it can be an absolute train wreck. Like, it can be, but boy, somehow I sometimes find enjoyment. Again, sometimes I find enjoyment, sometimes I don't. What I don't find enjoyment is Sonic 06. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm putting Sonic 06 in the trash heap. I don't see the appeal of this game. I don't. Some people do. Some people are like, hey, like, it's like Sonic Adventure 3, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, but this feels like a regression in Sonic Adventure. It feels like it tried to be the next Sonic Adventure and it just flopped. And to be fair, maybe if it wasn't rushed, maybe we would have gotten a good game. But I don't like the story. I feel like the entire game would need to be like revamped. Shoutouts to Project 06, which is a fan game, which essentially just tries to improve the game in general. Like, literally, I believe its own engine from the ground up, just like taking the assets and everything and just making a better game. Sadly, I haven't been able to play it because that game is very intensive on your system, and my computer sucks. So maybe one day I get a decent, powerful PC, I'll be able to run it. But from what I've seen from other people playing it, it's impressive. I kind of just have to applaud them, really, because I wouldn't. I wouldn't do this. I would just be like, well, just make a new game. I wouldn't touch Sonic 06. I feel like Sonic 06 is that game that should just be like, it happened, right? We get it. It's rubbish. Just let it be, right? Don't try to save it. Don't try to salvage it. But shout outs to I think it might be Chaos X. Maybe I could be wrong. Kudos for what they've managed to do, because yeah, like, it's definitely the way better version of Sonic. And if you can play it, play Project 06. If you enjoy Sonic 06 at all. But, like, there's no saving that story for me. I think that story is an absolute mess. I'm sorry. I don't like Elise. Like, why is she there? No, sorry. There's just the bugs and the glitches, but there's just so much I don't like about that game. The only reason I like it is I actually kind of like breaking the game. Like, I get enjoyment out of breaking the game, not playing the game as intended, and I think that's not good. So, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not sorry. Screw you. It's staying in the trash where it belongs. Sonic Unleashed. I feel like I'm a broken record because everybody says this, but half of the game is good, half of the game not so much. I know there are some people who actually like the Werehog, and I'm happy for you. I don't. I feel like every time I play Sonic Unleashed, I want to try to like the Werehog and give it a chance. But the more I play the Werehog, the more annoyed I get. I'm just like, I don't want to be doing this, man. I want to play a Sonic, the actual Sonic. Like, why are we doing this? So, yeah. It's still the best looking Sonic game, in my opinion, that we've ever gotten. It was ahead of its time, so much so that it wasn't optimized. I would love to play this on, was it an Xbox Series X or whatever, so I could actually run the game as intended, but that would require me getting an Xbox, and, well, I don't have Xbox consoles. I've never bought an Xbox console, and I'm not doing that just to play Sonic Unleashed. No, man. No, I ain't doing that. But man, the modern levels are really good. They're really great, actually. I really enjoyed them. I actually really enjoyed the boost gameplay. It's not like Sonic Adventure. It's clearly way more focused on just going fast, and that's it. The music is honestly one of my favorites. Really good. There's a variety of music going on there. Really, really, really good. I don't mind the story, and I don't mind Chip. I know some people don't like Chip, but I don't mind Chip. But it's bogged down by metal collecting. But I like the idea of exploring the world and having levels based on different parts of the world. Now that is cool. And then there's the Werehog. I don't want to be brawling. I want to play a Sonic game, not a brawler. It's how I feel about Crash of the Titans. I don't want to be brawling. I want to be platforming, because that's what Crash is. I don't want to be beating things up like this. If I'm beating things up, I'm boosting or homing attacking or jumping on enemies. Why couldn't this just be Knuckles or something? But again, it's the story, I guess. It still has the best opening in any Sonic game, by the way. Sonic Unleashed is, for me, one of the most conflicting games. I want to love it, but I only like it because parts of it are good, parts of it's not. So, yeah. But I don't think it's like bad. I just think it's very middle of the road. And middle of the road is because I think the Werehog and various other things drag it down. But the other half is like, oh, this could be so good. But then there's the other half, but it's just not. So that's where I'm putting it. Sonic Colors. Now, I've put Sonic Colors Ultimate because, yes, it's a different version. It's essentially the same game. But I decided to put it there because, sure, I like Sonic Colors personally. A lot of people don't like it. It's essentially tried to sort of be Unleashed stages only. The unfortunate thing is there's a lot of acts, and these acts, most of them are just like 2D sections, like 2.5 sections, which, you know, a lot of people are like, well, we're playing a 3D game, we don't want 2D sections. Not really, anyway. Like, save 2D for 2D Sonic. So I can understand that. I think this is a really pretty Wii game. Like, graphically, these levels are colorful, vibrant, like absolutely gorgeous, and really impressive on the Wii. Well, I say when I'm doing like the actual like third-person 3D stages, I think overall they're really fun. I don't think this game is super difficult. It's a fairly straightforward and easy game. It's not super long. You know, I feel like it could be a Sonic game that someone who doesn't really play Sonic could play, like a 3D Sonic game anyway, because it's not super difficult. It doesn't do anything crazy, though, I guess. The boss fights are kinda weak. The story's okay. The Wisp powers are okay. There's a lot of okay in it, but again, I enjoy it. I enjoy it enough. I enjoy it enough that I would put it in A. But it's not quite S. It's not quite S. Definitely not. Like I say, I think less of the 2D stuff, because the 2D stuff, a lot of that isn't really that good anyway, in my opinion. The 3D stuff is way better. Like Planet Wisp, love that stage. It's really good. But they're overall, like, the levels are just really solid. The OST is so good as well. Another banger OST. It's really good. It's a really solid game. If it changed some things, I think it could be an S, but it's not. It's just not quite there. Yeah, I guess I was lucky with Sonic Colors Ultimate because I didn't really have the problems that everyone was having. I think one of the problems was patched out, so I guess I just didn't see it. I don't hate on this nearly as much because I overall felt like it was, for the most part, a very similar experience to Sonic Colors. I can sort of see that, okay, maybe it's, you know, not as good. Maybe what they did actually kind of downvoted a little bit. I mean, they just like randomly kind of added Metal Sonic, I guess, and the races are fine, but not really needed. There's like no point to really having Metal Sonic there. If you like, you know what I mean. I still think it's ultimately just Sonic Colors, right? Just maybe some things here and there. Unfortunately, not the best port, right? Maybe not the best, but I just don't think it's as bad, right? I don't think it's as bad as what everyone's making, in my opinion. But again, I am basing this off of my experience. I know a lot of people do not like this, but I don't know. If I wanted to be really spicy, I'd just put it there and piss off the fans. Yeah, what the fuck am I doing? I'm leaving it there. Sonic Generations. Yeah, S. It has to be S. It's above Sonic Colors. Arguably the best boost game. Yeah, it's very nostalgia heavy because you get to play as classic Sonic. Quite decent classic Sonic, you know. A lot of stages have been reimagined, which are really cool, you know. Green Hill Zone modern, Chemical Plant modern, Sky Sanctuary and all that. That's really cool. We returned to the Sonic Adventure era and such with Speed Highway. You know, again, it's not a super difficult game. It's not a super long game. But it's really fun. And again, it's one of those games where I feel like it's just like a very sort of fan servicey type of game to Sonic fans, right? If you like 2D or 3D, I feel like you'll get a great enjoyment. And it's honestly really fun. And like I say, the boost formula feels very refined here. Sonic controls great. The drifting is great. The boosting is great. You know, I like the story. You know, it's simple enough. The interactions with the classic Sonic and Tails, and you got classic Eggman as well. The boss fights overall are solid. Outside of the final boss, sadly, the time meter is a bit on the weaker side. But the levels are really fun. All of Sonic's friends are here, including Silver, somehow. Don't ask, I don't know. Recreating Sonic and Shadow's fight, even recreating the Sonic Adventure 2 intro. Like, again, it's very, like, love lettery, fan servicey. Like I say, if you're a Sonic fan, especially, like, all the way from 2D, you know, up to, like, Sonic Colors and such, I think you will find some enjoyment in this game. It is really fun. It's just a fun, solid 3D Sonic game with a lot of fan service that people can appreciate. Oh boy. Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to do that. Yeah, I don't think Sonic Lost World is the worst game, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't. I really didn't. It was so meh, man. I did not enjoy the story. The Deadly Six are uninteresting. What were they doing with certain characterizations with Sonic and Tails and shit? I don't know what's going on there. I don't really like the way he controls, and it's weird. It's like we had these boost games, and then they decided to do something that different. It weren't even like adventure. Like, you have like a run button. It's like, what? What do you mean? It's weird. Sonic Lost World is a weird game, in my opinion. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. The only thing I will defend is the OST. Sea Bottom Segway is beautiful. I love that track. You give me a good piano track in a video game, and it's probably going to be my favorite track. Like, it's so good. The OST is so good. But that's, for me, like, pretty much the only redeeming factor of the game. I guess it's pretty to look at somewhat, but yeah, I didn't like the level design. I didn't really like the levels. I didn't like the controls. Nah, I don't know. I've played worse, but I didn't try for Sonic Lost World. I just... No, thank you. I'd rather not. So, okay. Sonic Forces is one of those games where I would probably put it as a C, but I also feel like maybe I judge it a bit too harshly, and that's why I'm putting it in B. But I really want to put it in C. But I'll put it in B, sure, whatever. Sometimes a game being boring can be worse than a game that's just straight up broken. But in this case, it's at least a functional game, which I think is what it has over Sonic 06. It really doesn't do anything that interesting. It tries to, and then it drops the ball. Infinite could have been interesting, and then it just kind of became a joke. And it's just like, I don't know. There's so many things that just went wrong with this game. But I also think that I don't want to judge it too harshly. The game is very, very short. I wish the stages were longer. I wish the stages felt more original. We are still returning to Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone, and it's like, what are we doing? Also, Death Egg Zone. It's like, what? It's like, okay. It feels like this should have been in Generations, but okay, whatever. Some people joke that this is Generations 2, but worse. Like, the boss fights basically are non-existent. I don't know, man. It took a weird direction. Like, they wanted it to be dark, I guess, and, like, kill off Sonic, but then he wasn't dead. And Silver's here again for some reason. I don't know. He's just here. The only redeeming factor for me is the character creation. I think it was a good idea for Sega to create a Sonic game where you can create your own character. In my personal opinion, make you feel part of the journey. I feel like if a kid was playing this for the first time, they'd probably really like it. Like, oh my god, my only creative character, my own original OC Sonic character, and I can do it, you know, alongside Sonic. And Sonic, because Classic Sonic is here. And he really did not need to be. They trying to make it seem like it's a weird sequel to Mania, and it's like, no, because of the Phantom Ruby, and it's like, stop, leave Classic Sonic in Mania. Like, why is he here? Like, oh, this game annoys me. This game annoys me. Fuck it, I'm putting it in C. Sorry. It annoys me. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, and I would even argue that I might be being a bit too harsh, but it's just such a middle of the road game where I find it hard to enjoy almost anything. I'm just bored, you know? It doesn't do anything interesting. It, like, this, to me, this is the most, like, hold button to boost, right? There's no drifting or anything. The game isn't really designed for the drift, but it's just like, man, when do I do something? When do I actually, like, pay attention and do something? It's just, man, it feels so brain dead and boring. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. That's my experience. But the The character creation, I think, was a good idea. I think the character creation gameplay is solid. It is decent. That's the only redeeming factor. I personally do not like the soundtrack at all. No, I lie. There's only like one thing I like. Ironically, it is the remix for I forget what the name. I forgot the name of the stage is called. The first stage of Sonic Shadow the Hedgehog. It's not Metropolis, is it? No, it's not Metropolis. What is it called? I can't think of it right now. The first stage of Shadow the Hedgehog, like, there's a remix, and I really like the remix. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you like the soundtrack, good for you. But I really didn't drive. No, I don't like Fist Bump. Nah, I don't know. Maybe I'm an old man Sonic fan. I don't know. Young whippersnappers, but Sonic Frontiers A. After Sonic Forces, I feel like Sonic Frontiers was a nice, refreshing welcome. I feel like this is one of those games where it's like, oh, this has the potential to be really good. It's not quite there yet, in my opinion, but it's still a pretty good game, in my opinion. I do. If you can get past the random floating rails, I guess, and them just kind of popping in and stuff, there's clearly some like issues and problems here and there where it's like, could this not have been sorted or ironed out before release? I like the story. I actually think it's one of the more interesting stories we've gotten, you know, like the revelation of them basically being like, hey, so Chaos is or was part of a race, and it's like, what? And that race came to Earth with the Chaos Emeralds, and it's like, wait, the Chaos Emeralds aren't even from Earth, apparently? It's like, what? And then it's like, there's still stuff we actually don't know, like the Master Emerald, like what's the deal with that and whatnot. Again, it actually got me interested. Once again, there's definitely like references to various different Sonic games and such. I know Sage is a very, very fan favorite. Like, people seem to really like her. I didn't at first. I think she's okay. I personally need to see more of her in perhaps another Sonic game, and then I will determine whether I like the character overall or not. But I'll be honest, she just came across as annoying. Even if I knew why she did it, I still was just like, eh. But I don't think she's like the worst character. I just think she's alright. I've mellowed down a little bit. I think she's alright. You know, I don't love the character like some people do, but I just think she's alright. The cyber stages are decent, but what brings them down is the fact that they're just, the aesthetics are just Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary, and some generic city. If you're gonna bring back levels from old Sonic games, please just go the Sonic Generations route. Give me actual levels with the actual graphics, please. Like, actually give me Metal Harbor from Sonic Adventure 2. Like, come on, man. The cyber stages are the weakest part, in my opinion. The DLC actually does, in my opinion, improve a bit on the game, but I feel like the DLC doesn't improve the game. Like, it doesn't improve some of the main game problems. I feel like the main game problems are still there, some of them, which is kind of like, yeah, it doesn't really improve on that, but they kind of add some new cool stuff and such, and like the new sort of alternate ending that they kind of created, which is arguably better. Depends on how you feel about certain things, I suppose. The big highlights for this game, I think, is that we got the closest thing to an open world Sonic game. We've got big islands to explore. The downside is that maybe you're not the biggest fan of the puzzles, right? The puzzles kind of get a bit repetitive sometimes. The Guardians, they're alright. I like the combat. I think it's solid. The highlights is definitely has to be the supersonic fights with the Titans. We've never gotten so much supersonic. Yeah, like to me, they're definitely the big highlights. And I actually quite like the characterizations of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. I legit do. I actually think that we've needed something like this for a while. You know, even addressing things like Tails' inconsistency and things like that. So there are things I do like, right? I think this is a decent solid experience. I mean, when I initially played it, I did think, oh, you know, it's a pretty good game. Not like the best, but I think it's pretty good. I actually did, overall, I did enjoy it. Clearly there are things that could have improved on it to make it better. If they do something like this again, I can only hope that they, again, give us like fully, properly original stuff. If they're big open worlds, like give us other things to do, I suppose. There are some things I really like about it though. Like there are some great like layouts and obstacle courses that are really good. Even the DLC has some great obstacle courses for Tails and Knuckles and Amy. They're really good. Like I say, there is some stuff that I think that are really solid in this game, and that's kind of why I put it in an A. Not enough for an S. And that's it. I'm going to leave Sonic 3D Blast because it kind of is a different experience. I'm going to leave it. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but yep, that's what I'm going with. Who knows? Sonic fans' opinions tend to change, so when the next Sonic game comes out, I guess I'll have to do another one, and we'll see how I feel then. Who knows? Maybe in 5 years, Sonic 06 will be the best game of all time. Let me know your thoughts, tell me how wrong I am, and be sure to do your own tier list if you want to get involved. And ask me at GamebustersJ on Twitter. Alright, I'll catch you all on the next tier list. Till then.